Welcome back, everybody. It is the Ecom Dispensary, Knowledge Up number 37, episode number 150. Kind of a big episode, 150. It's not a 100 or a 200, but 150, it's a good number. In this one, we're talking about why success loves speed. So this is something that was kind of inspired by a new venture that me and Scotty are putting together. I don't think we want to reveal too many details about that quite yet. Um, but one of the hallmarks of kind of this new venture that we're working on is working with speed. And I think there's a big reason that me and Scotty are working on this new venture is because we kind of want to get back into this mode where we're working really, really fast and implementing things, right off the bat, really just working with speed, really. Kind of want to talk about our thoughts on that and some of the previous business ventures that we've had, and why we really think that this is so important. Because personally, I think this is probably one of the most important things in business, and it doesn't necessarily make a ton of logical sense all the time, but it just tends to work out this way. So, Scotty, what do you think? Why does success love speed?
I love when you do that when you get tired of talking. So you just like
Just throw it off to you. Yeah.
hand it over to me with like the most generic question.
Well, we got
Um,
to get things going, man. This is the beginning of the episode. We got to get the premise straight away. And then, the people, they want to hear from you, man. They want to hear from you.
Understandably so. Understandably so. I think it's a case of when you're getting started with anything new, there's a large chance it's going to fail, and but you're not going to figure out whether an idea is a winner or not by thinking about it. You're going to have to usually test it out in one way or another. And then you're very quickly going to see, does this get any traction or not? So if you work fast, you end up testing out a lot more things versus taking your time, really thinking about stuff and talking yourself out of trying things. Because when you have an idea and you're excited about it, I think the best thing to do a lot of the time is just fucking go out and build it and see if it works. And because when you think about it more, you can only talk yourself out of it. Very rarely do you get more excited about an idea as you sit around thinking about it, pondering it for days. So generally the result is either you sit around for a few days and you still like the idea, you still do it, you're in the same place except you just wasted a couple days, or alternatively you talk yourself out of it, you come up with some sort of smart sounding reason for why this isn't a good idea after all, and you don't launch and you never know if it could have worked after all. There's a lot of businesses that don't, that there's smart sounding reasons for why it shouldn't work, but they still work, if that makes sense. And honestly, any business on Facebook, you could make the justification right now is not a good time to be launching a store on Facebook. You don't want to be reliant on Facebook. I don't want to trust sucks shutting down all these ad accounts. I'm not going to launch on Facebook. These are all smart reasons, quote unquote, to not launch on Facebook. But if you listen to those sort of nagging thoughts in your head, you're going to lose out on a ton of money. Because even though there's a million reasons why Facebook, building your business off the back of Facebook's a bad idea, it still works.
I like that. I like that. I think the what you mentioned at the beginning of that is really key. When you're first getting started, most likely the majority of your ventures are not going to work. It's kind of just how it goes. If you have no experience in business and you want to start a business, it could happen, but it's not very likely that your first, your second, your third, these initial attempts that you have, it's not very likely that they're going to work. And that's just kind of the way it is. Like you can't just start doing something from scratch with no experience and expect to be really good at it. The way that you do get good at it, though, is by doing it. It's by trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't. And ideally, like we talked about in a previous episode, keeping a log of all the things that you're doing and, trying to analyze why something worked better than others, why something didn't work, and, just kind of using the process of elimination. But if you spend a lot of time, like thinking about your ideas, you come up with an idea and then you just spend a lot of time thinking about it and like strategizing it before you actually do anything for it. if you compare the guy who does that to the guy who just has an idea and instantly goes and implements it, those two guys in the span of 6 months, the first guy could maybe test one or two businesses, one or two ideas, while the other guy could test 6, 7, 8, whatever. He could test a lot of different businesses. And if it's not purely a numbers game, but in some ways it is. And the more that you test, it's kind of like common sense. Like, the more swings you take, the more likely you are to hit a home run, So you kind of just want to take as many swings as possible. And I'm not saying that you should like completely sacrifice quality, because there is a balance there. But I'd say for the most part, most people err way more on the side of trying to make it insane quality when they'd really be much better off just kind of doing the best that they could, making the quality solid, but not anything crazy, and just shipping it out as fast as possible.
Yep, 100%. Just because you get so much more experience as well. Like over the course of a year or a couple of years, you will rack up so much more experience if you just act fast. And I mean, a lot of times you're going to start stuff that was stupid and you're going to have to shut it down. So it's start fast, but then also look at the results and shut down quickly. And this is one of the things I love about ecom, how you can have pretty decent idea of whether this idea has traction or not within like a week. 2 rounds of tests, if it isn't working, pretty high chances it's not going to work. Whereas like business models I used to do before, where it was like SEO, you wouldn't really know for like 6 months. And it's okay because you build it once, you set up stuff to publish or whatever, and then you sit around waiting and you start something new probably. But you don't learn as quick when you have to wait 6 months for results to come in.
Yeah.
It's one of the beautiful things about ecom.
That is, man. We've definitely talked about that in a previous episode before as well. Ecom is it's a game of rapid testing, and you can test pretty rapidly. I remember like when I was first getting started, I don't know if everyone goes through this. I think a lot of people do. Like I kind of went through this stage where I'd come up with all these ideas, and I was just kind of stuck in this like thinking and strategizing phase where I'd come up with an idea, I'd like plan it all out, go into a notes doc and, plan out all the different intricate details and all that kind of stuff. And then I wouldn't actually like, maybe I'd have an idea for a store or a product that I wanted to sell. And then I'd go and I'd build the store. It would take me like a week to build the store. And then because I was working so slowly and I was thinking about things so much, I would just find all the reasons that this isn't going to work. And there were multiple times where I built stores and never actually ran ads, because by the time I finished the store, I had basically psyched myself out of it and just, convinced myself that it wasn't going to work and I shouldn't even try it anyway. And that was, I think that there's like, that's okay in some sense. Like, I think that's kind of a normal part of the process, but a lot of people never make it out of that. And you have to get to the point eventually where you're actually testing your ideas. And what that really comes down to is just putting out an offer and doing everything you can to get it in front of people who might be likely to buy it. For ecom, all that really comes down to is building out a Shopify store and running Facebook ads. Running Facebook ads is kind of the, at least with our strategy, that's the way that we get traffic for the most part. That's the kind of big scary thing, because that requires you to spend money. And, it took me a little bit to get over that hump where I felt like I was like, okay, so I'm actually going to do this. And the faster that you can do that, the faster that you can just start implementing things and actually getting traffic to whatever it is that you're doing, the faster you're going to figure out what works and what doesn't, the faster you're going to fail. And then, by kind of default, the faster that you're going to succeed.
Yep. 1,000%. 1,000%. There is a time and a place for being a bit more selective. And I mean, I think we've been somewhat selective because we want to be focused on our main brand in the past year and a half, where you're not just jumping at every opportunity. But getting started, if you don't have a main brand yet, definitely just act fast, jump on anything. It's a tough balance though. I think we kind of go back and forth between, hey, let's just focus on our main brand and not do anything else. And then other times we're like, okay, let's test.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it is interesting. In terms of like specifics with ecom, what do you think, Scotty, is like a good amount of, testing, say, we're talking about testing entirely different stores and products, how often, if you're working with speed, how many are you doing per month, would you say?
If nothing's working, I think 2 a month is honestly a good amount.
Yeah.
That gives you time to like, so if on day one of the month you launch, or actually better, day one you have the idea, you probably launch like day three. First round of the test is done by like day six, hasn't really worked. You make another round of tests, launches on day seven. You're done by like day 10. Hasn't worked out. You think about it for a few days. What am I going to do next? Day 12, 13, you start another round of tests. And yeah, sort of halfway through the month. If you can do 2 a month, that's pretty decent. Where people get bogged down is when things are kind of working and it's break even, profitable some days, and you don't know whether to continue or not. That's where shit slows down. And that's fine. I mean, stuff has to slow down because you've got some traction. You're going to stick with that idea a bit and try and really make it work. But just don't get stuck with that for 6 months running a store that only kind of works.
Yep.
And there are people that have really turned it around by changing the offer, the angle, or something big like that. There's also stores that just, as data accumulates, start doing well. But generally speaking, stuff that works at least decently well right off the bat.
Yeah.
So if within a month you're not profitable, make the big changes, make the offer change, make the angle change. If you don't see a big change that you can make and potentially really change results, it's probably a good idea to move on.
Yep. I would agree with that. I mean, we've experienced that testing some different stores and products recently. The last store that we tested, it was kind of like just like exactly what you were describing. It started off decent. It was profitable some days, unprofitable other days, right around the break even point. And I think we ended up running that for, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe like 3 weeks, and did what we could to try to get it profitable. And they're just, we did everything we could and just couldn't really figure out how to get it to that next point. And we ended up shutting it down. So that is how it goes. And, from here, it's on to the next one. And that's just kind of what it be. It's how it be. It's what it do. And, now we're working on getting the next store, the next brand, the next big thing, hopefully. We're working on getting that going. And we'll just kind of repeat that process. It's no small feat to build an e-com store that makes sales profitably. Building a store that makes sales isn't that difficult in my opinion, but building a store that makes sales consistently and profitably, it's really two completely different levels. So, it might take some time. It might take a bunch of different tests. You might have to fail a bunch of times, but at the end of the day, it only takes once. And if you can just keep, I don't know, some cliche advice, motivational type quote here, keep going, don't give up, all that kind of stuff. Eventually you're going to find something that works. And from there, that's when it gets fun. So,
yeah, it doesn't really matter how long it takes when you're going after a life-changing result.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, main point here is success loves speed. You really want to go from idea to implementation as fast as humanly possible. If you have a good idea that you get excited about, don't look for all the reasons that it couldn't work. Just go out and build it. Ideally, you want to be able to do that quickly. And that's why e-com is such a great business model, because you can test things very, very quickly. But just don't spend too much time thinking about your ideas, because even if you have the absolute best idea in the entire world, you're going to find a million reasons that it might not work. And at the end of the day, looking at those things and thinking about those things doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. You just got to get the idea out there into the world, go and test it, put it in front of some people, and see what happens.
Yes, sir. Well said, Schmitty.
Word. Well, I think that is going to do it for episode number 150. That is why success loves speed. We'll talk to you guys in the next one.